theories. So you were talking about, like, oh, we don't even know this character, right? Well, one of the things that Stella does at the end of the film is she says to Sara, I'll write your story. So you just said, like, we don't even know the pale lady. Why is she smiling? Who is she? Sara's just as much as a monster as any other character that we see in the film. So what if she writes their story and that's her way of saving the other characters?
That is an amazing theory.
I know.
I would love that. Like, we find out the pale lady's, like, random theory off the top of my head. Random thought. She's, like, a depressed mother, and that's why she hugs Chuck.
That's what I thought of, too. A depressed... Something with a mama. Yeah, I mean, hugging her children. Harold, you know, he could be the guy... The farmer that was on the roof! From the actual Alan Schwartz story.
That would be awesome if he was the original Harold. I don't know where he ran off, but so this Harold that we see in the movie could be Harold 2.
Yes! Like, she could be writing these stories and then releasing the characters. From what I assume her goal is to release, you know, Chuck, Augie, maybe Tom.
He wasn't mentioned at the end when,
yeah.
Like, Stella's like, we need to rescue, Chuck and Augie. So, like, where's Tommy, the bully? And, like, honestly, yeah, it's like, honestly, maybe if I was, like, you know, the guy who made my life hell for, like, a few years is, like, a supernatural thing offed him.
Yes. However, where the hell is Stella's mom? That's another theory I want to get into. How did she just disappear? Where does her fascination with monsters come from? I have a deep inkling or suspicion that her mom didn't just disappear as all the other characters appear to be, like just disappearing. I think there's something intertwined with that entire, you know, concept of the film with the monsters and the stories being written. The idea that, like, you know, even the story of her mom is written by the town, and that, you know, the ideology that her mom just ran off. There's no real evidence that she ran off or where she is or what she's doing. It's just that she disappeared. Even her dad doesn't know. And the thing that kind of frustrates me is where does Stella get the idea that she's to blame? Like, why is the dad even like, I know you think it's you, Stella, but it's not. Like, I'm like, why does she blame herself? Where does this idea come from? What are they talking about? So I want to look, I hope if there is a second movie that they do explore that in further depth. Now, another theory, or at least suspicion, or I don't know what word to call it, another idea I have. The idea of parallel universes, right? We see this in a lot of instances. It first appears when Chuck is in the closet. He's in the closet, he opens it up, and then suddenly he's in that other world, Sara's world, in the back in the days where, like, the blind old woman is in a room with a Doberman. And then he closes it, and then he's back to his real world. Okay? We see that same world again later with Stella.
Yep.
When she's like Sara. So we see that there's like and we can confirm that they're overlapping universes or realities because Ramon is still able to contact her despite not being on the same timeline, I guess. So you know that is certainly possible. Now, another instance of this, which I think is overlooked on my end, is the Red Room. Because if you remember, they're running after him, and for Chuck, while the Red Room scene is going on, there's flashing lights, there's red, there's alarms, and he's all alone despite all the staff that are supposedly chasing after him. Where do they go? What happens? When they get to the point where they actually meet his destination where he got consumed, there's no flashing lights, there's no redness, no alarms, nothing. So why is he in that area, that world, and they're not? that must suggest there's some type of, like, either psychological fear that's happening or a parallel universe. And that's the other thing that, within this theory that I'm proposing, how much of it is psychological, how much is it actually real-world events. I'll expand upon that because another thing that happens when the jangly man appears for Ramon, the thing that really bothers me the most, or not bothers me, I shouldn't say, but the thing that I want to comment on the most is that at this time, Stella and Ramon are in the jail cells. The book is on the sheriff/deputy. I don't know his title. I'm sorry.
The cop.
The cop dude is, he's sitting at his desk, and it's, his dog starts growling at the fireplace. He knows something's going on. He notices that the book has written a story. They're freaking out. They're like, who's the name? Who is it going after? He finally came down the fireplace. First it's his head, then a few other limbs. It's this, like, really gross thing. And he's like, what the f***? And he starts shooting at it. He's like, freaking out. His dog's
Does
like,
he really say f*** in the movie?
I don't think he says that, but he's like, what the? And he's like, what? You know what I mean? Like, as anybody would be. Like, what the hell is going on? Because the kids in the movie, they know, like, to expect monsters. But here you have an outsider that is viewing this. So then I'm like, okay, well, wait. Does that mean these monsters are real? Are they entering the reality? Are they entering the same dimension? Or did the cop accidentally get twisted into the other dimension because the story was being written? And that's one of the biggest questions I have about the entire film is, like, spoiler alert. Just kidding, because it's a spoiler. But yeah, he dies. So is he dying in that world? Or is he dying in the real world? Because Tom is missing the real world. Ruth is getting into an ambulance in the real world. So, what's the whole deal with him? He clearly sees it. He clearly knows what's going on. He's clearly killed by the jangly man. So again, it begs the question of what's going on in this story. Is it parallel universes, kind of like, Silent Hill or Stranger Things?
I was saying it was Silent Hill
like,
this whole time.
where it just, flips upside down and, like, no one else can see it. Because at the same time, I'm like, okay, they're in a police office or the police department. Where did all the other police officers go? What happened to them?
Just to add to your point, I've only seen one cop in this whole movie. Is this like Andy Griffith? Is this like a 1960s sitcom? Like, I get it's 1968 in the movie, but, like, there's one cop in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Not even like a few cops that died, just one.
A racist one.
Yeah, one racist cop. I just want to throw that. Yes, the only non-white person in the movie gets thrown in jail. Like, he's a hero, but
he's a hero.
Ramon, like, he's a hero protagonist.
Oh, protagonist. Yeah, I got you. Sorry.
Like, I don't want to say like he's he's not a superhero.
He's a dumb teenager, just like the rest. Sorry.
Right. That's what's funny. She's a dumb teenager. Your point of, like, the universe thing. Like, I thought that was really interesting because first time we really noticed that is Augie getting pulled under the bed. And then they, like, run into his room like, oh,
but they see the evidence that it really happened.
Right, they move his bed and they see the nail marks and that leads right out.
Here's another thing I noticed. Sorry. So the cop, but he tells Stella and Ramon, oh, she's gonna be, like, essentially he suggests that she's in the mental institution. That's a slang term. I don't actually use that, but that's what he's suggesting. Like, she's cuckoo bananas. She said there were spiders coming out of her face. And I think he was suggesting, that's just another theory, I think he was suggesting that the ambulance and the doctors and the nurses and the medic didn't believe her. I think that her story of the spiders coming out of her face was not believed. She had, like, maybe some other medical issue, and that's why she was, like, in there for a long time. Like, you'll never see... I forgot what he said exactly, but he basically suggested she's gone. That's what he said. That she's gone. You're not going to see her again. She's going to end up there forever.
Was that the scene I missed? Like, did he say that to them? When did he say that?
I think so.
Alright, because I did, like, just to add to this, I thought it was interesting because Chuck, who was the geek in the movie, but he was really cool. Like, a cool geek where he, like, ran in to make sure his sister was safe.
Yeah, I thought it was so nice.
Right, and that's what, like, I really liked about him, I guess. That's probably another thing I liked about him, where he had a good friendship with his sister, but still messed with her. Like,
yes. That back to that point, though, of, like, the alternate universes or parallel, I don't know what you want to call it.
Right.
One of the things that I'm teetering on the edge of, is this in the minds of these kids, or is it an actual different dimension? And I know it sounds like such an extreme shift, but you really have to ask yourself this, because, again, Augie's fingernails were still in the floorboards, and Augie is still missing from the real world. Tommy is still missing from the real world.
Just a real quick thing. Maybe Augie isn't. I mean, not Augie. Tommy. Tommy might be in the real world. Remember how he...
No, the police were there looking for him.
But remember how he's coughing up hay? He might be the scarecrow now.
Well, I'm saying he's there, but he, like...
Like, his physical body might be there, but his soul...
Right. I'm saying there's something there that perpetuates their missingness, their lack of presence. But the thing that is repeated at the beginning and end of the movie, I think it said 3 times at least, is like, stories are...
Feel, stories can make you forget, and stories can be real, or so.
If you repeat them enough, they'll be real.
Yes.
So I'm just like, are these kids perpetuating the stories into existence? Is it their belief that makes them true? That's what I want to know. Like, there's so many layers that either I'm looking too much into, and the director is just like, nah, dude, it's just a horror story, just roll with it. Or if there's really this much intricacy to it. Like, I don't think they're gonna go into, like, the depth of, like, there's an alternate reality of, like, monsters hanging out in their bedrooms and, it's my time, okay, I'm coming up. No, I don't think it's gonna, like, go into that. There's something, I think, that has to be looked into deeper, though, between either the storytelling, the realities being, like, on top of each other, layered somehow, and how, I don't know, it's seen by some but not by all. Because, again, if you look at the spiders, I don't think anybody who walked into the bathroom at that time didn't see the spiders. I mean, there's no confirmation of that.
I believe that theory at that point. Because Stella also is like, I looked at the wall and saw Sara. Like, her ghostly,
right.
shadowy thing. So I could see that, where it's like, maybe Ruth really just... like, in our reality, had a bad spider bite. Because she does say, like, I had a spider bite.
Yeah.
And, like, everyone was like, ooh, that's really bad. Like, so she could have had a spider bite that got infected. And, like, maybe she thought it was a pimple or something. Tried to pop it, and maybe, like, she had an infectious thing. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I feel like we do get a really fun, like, dimensional thing, like, and like, just for fun, I want to jump back to, like, old late 90s horror games. Like, Soul Reaver does this dimensional thing where you play as the Soul Reaver, who can jump into the ghost world and the physical world. So maybe we'll get something like that. Maybe we'll get something like, I don't think that's ridiculous. I think that's a fun idea of just, like, because this movie throws back to so many themes. Like, it throws back to, like, the slasher build-up, the ghosts lurking around under your bed. So, who knows? Like, I do think it jumps on different planes of existence, and we had, we actually did have that. We did have that, like you already said, like, where Ramon's, like, calling out to Stella, and Stella's, like, being accused of being Sara. So the movie does do a really good job of, like, not, like, you walking away psychologically, like, whoa, like, confused, but, like, who the heck knows? And that's what's great about this kind of movie, where it's not, like, cut and dry, like, oh, everyone's fine in the town, like, my friends just magically showed up. Mm-hmm. That's why I think this movie was very good. It was fun. Flawed, of course.
Can I mention some flaws?
Of course you can mention flaws.
Alright, it's my biggest one.
Yes.
It's like my biggest flaw. Because I think I said this in the previous podcast, right? They put so many attention to detail to make it realistic. The characters, still generic, but realistic. They show their families, kind of build upon that, where they're coming from. The whole propaganda, the posters, Nixon, the draft, the school, a little bit, not much. But still, they put it in these real world terms. But then we look at, right, these two kids get thrown into jail. They're alone with one officer. That officer is then murdered, thrown against a jail cell. And the last two people in those jail cells were two kids. And according to the last scene that they left, the door is unlocked by police keys and the two kids are out. But the one officer that's there is dead. What happens after that? Why is he just going into the ward being drafted and she's running off or driving off with her dad and Ruth? Is no one going to investigate that? That he was the last one seen with those two kids? And now he's dead? What, how did they just jump from, innocence right after that? No one is gonna question that? That is, my biggest flaw, is just, why is no one, questioning them for the death of this officer, this cop, this deputy, this sheriff? How did they get off so scot-clean? Now, as I was talking with Bowser, I said, you know what, that is a flaw right now. However, there's a lot of things that they could do with this. Number one is, I'm pretty sure he's dead. I'm almost certain he was dead. His head was 180.
Ooh,
he was
dang.
like that. So I'm just I'm pretty sure he's dead. But there could be the case maybe he wasn't dead because he wasn't written in the story, and maybe he didn't die because he wasn't the focal point of the story, and he could wake up and be crazy and no one believes him, and he's oh, there's this monster, and maybe he ends up back in the town as in the crazy police officer that no one believes. That's one theory, or a response that they could do to that. Number two is, if there is this alternate reality, he disappears and there is no body for them to find, right? Because if he's killed by this alternate reality monster, then when he stay existing in that world and not appear to the real world plane, that's, two ways that I can even surmise that they could react or respond to that, because otherwise, I think the biggest thing that bothers me is you pay so much attention to these real world details, but then don't bother to respond to that, which is a lesser detail that you should be paying more attention to. Your thoughts?
So I missed that scene because I was out. My thoughts are either he could be dead just in general, and they're like with this town and such strange scenario, he could be dead. I think he's dead. Perhaps he doesn't get discovered. Perhaps he becomes a second version of, was it the Jingly Man?
Ooh. Nah.
Do
you remember what happened to him?
The Jingly Man, I know he got written and he fell apart.
Mm.
But maybe, I don't know, maybe the evil inside of Sara comes back and takes him, and these are just theories, of course, I don't know, maybe his body just gets taken away, a mystery, every other person that dies is a mystery, the sheriff's gone, Tommy's gone, Augie's gone, Chuck's gone. That's just a theory, or maybe...
But the mystery is that they were the last ones there, and his keys were in the door.
Well, maybe the fun mystery could be his keys are in the door, but his body is in there.
It wasn't.
Or his body wouldn't be there. What do you mean it wasn't?
His body was outside the cell.
No, I just mean his body in general could just be gone.
Oh, okay.
Because, everyone else's body... we didn't find Tommy's body.
Right.
No one's body was found.
But then Ruth, who's still alive.
The survivor is alive. The one that is alive is But she left too. Like, that's the fun thing. I think the sequel, maybe we could have the cop as some kind of a reincarnation of a villain. Like, not...
No, I think that's a great idea.
Like, and that's just a fun idea. Like, the movie had some flaws. Maybe I want to jump into those now, just because, like, I know I've personally touched upon the things I liked about it. It was a fun, spooky Halloween movie. Flaws, like, maybe I already mentioned this in the last podcast. Stella, I know you mentioned it. That scene where Stella and Ramon are in the hospital and Chuck, like the nerdy guy's like, I don't like this. That frustrated me so much. That's a frustrating scene. Just like, you're supposed to be the smart character, but you're making stupid choices. Like, your friend here is like, I had a bad dream about the Red Room, and he's like saying it on the bus, I think. Or not on the bus, he's asleep on the bus, but like I think he said it
he did say it at some point prior to all of that happening.
I think maybe when they burnt the book at the drive-in.
Either then or when they meet Lulu.
Yeah, okay, that makes, like, he's like, guys, I had a bad dream. So he's like, he's not just like randomly saying it, like he's been
right
saying.
Before they knock at our door.
For him to be like, I had a bad dream, and like, well, suck it up, dude. That's what made Stella a really bad protagonist. Like, not because for her to be so smart and like so like
yeah,
and then for her to be like, hey, I think you mentioned like my friend disappeared and the bully disappeared. Like, oh, but your dream you had, don't worry, it's okay. Like that was just very foolish, and like just that fun Halloween spookiness that needed to be done, but just like frustrating.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's definitely a character flaw in that, I wouldn't say she's a perfect person, but given how smart and of a leader that she is, it is something that's frustrating. See, my flaws, yeah, I think I touched upon all of that in terms of character flaws, but I think it's another plot hole flaw that could be fixed, absolutely, in the second film, if they do decide to go forward with one. But I have a lot of questions surrounding Ramon, in terms of, like, how is he running off? Where is he going to get the money? How is he so clean? He's not showering anywhere. Like, that's just, like, such a weird...
That was a weird...
character thing? I don't know what you want to call it. He's clean. He's getting his car fixed at the shop. I'm like, damn, how much money does this kid have? Like...
That... So, like, I just want to jump on there. Like, that I thought was very strange. Like, is he a wealthy dude? Like, for him to be like, yeah, I'll bring it to the shop. And his car is borderline totaled. Like, drivable, but still, like, the windows are messed up.
He took out, like, a f***ing part from his car. Like, he picked it up from his engine, hood, roof, whatever. Like...
Oh, yeah, it's like this, the bully Tommy and his buddies, like, lifted the hood up. And I personally don't know much about cars, but they like whatever they did, they like opened his hood up and like bashed his engine with like a bat, or
which would be a lot of money. So where is he getting this? He bought, like, I remember this, but I remember when they went to the library, he like put down 3 shakes and burgers, and I was like, that looks good. But I'm like, who's paying for that? Because I'm like, if it's Ramon, where the hell is he getting this money?
Right, I actually do remember that.
It looks so good.
I was like, dang, like that old 60s like food looks great. Like, I wish I was just sitting there like looking through like old stuff and like a mid sun autumn, like just like the scene was great. It was a great scene.
It was. But it still brings me back to the question of, like, where are you getting all this money? And it's, I don't know, it's just a weird thing. Where's his parents? Why aren't they looking for him? Why, I don't know, what was his goal? Where was he gonna go? There's just a lot of questions regarding that. That's one of my other flaws.
Totally agree, because he does mention, like, oh, well, I'll just bring my broken, in the car, I don't remember what kind of car it was, but it's like a pretty good car. Like, what was the worst thing? Was the inside he had, like, dirty underwear or something? Like, remember?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like he had, like, a beat-up, like, dumpster car. Like, something fine from the joke. It was, like, a nice car that, like, you just say, like, oh, I'll bring it to the shop. And you're like, okay, dude, you're, like, 18. It just, that scene was very strange. The whole thing was strange.
I definitely think, I think someone brought this up, is that it appeared as though the movie was longer but was cut.
That, actually, I did see a funny thing on another movie where they're like, oh, like, first, I think it was actually a joke about it, like the one that came out in 2017, the new one. They're like, oh, of course there's going to be the theatrical cut, then, the director's cut, which is like, you know, like an extra 5 minutes. Then you get the unedited cut or something, which has like 15 extra minutes. So, like, I could see what you're saying there, because, like, a lot of movies in general have a few cuts, like a few different versions. Of course. So I could see that being like, oh, like, this was the cut that the director had to do to fit. Because they're like, oh, like, no, I shouldn't say no one, but it's like, I know horror movies are really hard to market, and, like, you gotta find, like, a good month to market them. So, like, August is, like, alright, it's, like, a safe month. Especially, like, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It's, like, oh, it's an iconic series, but, like, lame thing is, like, you almost have to make your movie marketable to, like, the average person, as opposed to, like...
Right.
Like, let's say, like, you and me that know the books, and, like... Heck, I wouldn't mind watching, like, a 2 hour and 15-minute version of this movie, but it's, like, Bob down the street that's like, oh, I just want to, like, bring my girlfriend to a movie. Like, does he want to sit there for 2 hours and 15 minutes? Probably not. It's like, oh, like, this is my first date with my high school girlfriend. What's something that we can watch for, like, an hour and a half or something? That's the unfortunate thing about movies in general. So... I could see, like, where, like, oh, that cut doesn't make sense. Like,
no, I think that makes complete sense. That, like, this movie in particular is homage, 100% homage to anybody that has grown up with those movies. I've watched so many reviews, and everybody's like, I grew up with that. When we went to the theaters, I mean, I didn't see a lot of people. I think there was, like, total about, like, 5 parties, 5 to 6 parties overall, and they were either older or there was at least 2 or 3 young kids. And
yes,
the 2 or 3 young kids, you would imagine, like, I saw the kid in front of us, and then our own son who actually read the books, and then there is a younger group behind us where I mean, I'm assuming here, but they appeared, I don't know, based on the conversation, it sounded like they had read it, you know what I mean? Like, we're aware of it. It's definitely one of those niche films that was directed towards a certain group of people, and I appreciated that. So, I think they definitely did a really good job of pandering towards that and being like, hey, this is for all of you that read the books, know what it's about, here's the monsters, we're delivering it to you. But at the same time, they want to expand their audience and be like, well, it's not just for this, like, you know, handful of people who have read the books, because that, I think, would be unfair. Yeah.
Like, sorry, I just want to jump. Like, that's almost like comic book movies, where you, like, you have to do the same thing, where you market it to, like, of course, the nerdy guys that have read the comics will be like, oh, like, I know this or that, and, like, even comic book movies, they change some things enough where it's still fun for, like, nerdy guys, like, oh, I know what's going to happen next, and, like, wait a minute, that's not what happens in the comics, wait, now we got a new timeline, or some... This movie does the same thing, which I do appreciate, where they make it, because these are all short stories in general, like, how do you connect a bunch of short stories? It's like, how do you connect someone's, like, journal to, like, random ideas? So they do a good job at that. Yes, and I agree, too, like, the people behind us, I think, it sounds like they read it and had an idea, but they're still kind of, like, young. No, they had to kind of cut the movie to appeal to the casual audience. Just something... Unfortunately, like, I know a movie like this, they could do it in a different way, but they had to make it still fun for the diehard fan, or the semi-diehard, anyone that grew up with the books, but they still had to market it to the casual walk-in, like, I've never read these books, I have no idea what's going on. I mean, I think they did do a good job with that. Honestly, I think the only one I was truly 100% familiar with was Harold, and they changed that. The Red Room, or the Dream, I think it's called the Dream in the book. I know Bowser was showing me, because he has the
Yeah.
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Volume 3.
But he said that all these stories are from different volumes.
Yes, because I,
Which I thought, but I thought that was interesting. I thought they were going to do, like, the monsters from the first volume, and the monsters from the second, and then the third movie, monsters from the third volume. Which is interesting. So they're, like, they're grabbing from everywhere. Which is cool, because that leaves a lot of area to be like, I'm going to do something new.
That's, like, again, like a fun, almost like, not to compete with the comic book movies, but that's a fun thing comic book movies do now. So be like, oh, like, we'll take the best of some of these issues and the best of some other and kind of mix them.
Mm-hmm.
This movie did the same thing where they're like, oh, like, let's mix the best of 3 books, like the best short story from here, then like a semi-good, but we can pump it up.
I enjoyed it. I really, truly enjoyed it. I was smiling. I was having a good time. Like, I was excited for it. The suspense was really well done. I don't think we have enough time to jump into this, but on a side personal note, like, we looked at the special effects and how it was all practical. Like, and again, on a personal level, like, we especially love that because the CGI really takes away from the scare factor, because again, as an audience, we know it's fake. It takes away from that real scare that you can only get from, like, a monster that's standing in front of you. CGI cannot do that for you. I know I'm not criticizing CGI, but it just does not have that same effect, whereas practical effects really does. Like, it makes it that much more real. The actors who portray the monsters were, like, again, that's just my favorite part. And if I have one more criticism, it's that I wish there were more monster scenes, because they were, like, there and then done. Bowser said the same thing. He's like, I was expecting more monsters, like, do a flashback of the Wendigo. It's like, me too! Like, I want to see all the monsters. Like, I'm so excited for them. Between Guillermo del Toro and the special effects people that were involved and the actors that they hired for them, amazing, absolutely amazing. So I really hope that if there is a second film, that they really up the ante and, like, bring in more monsters, do something that just, like, so many of them are highlighted in a great way, pay more attention to detail with story making. That's what I hope for. If we're wrapping things up, like, well, these are all the things I'm hoping for. Wrapping up all my questions, answering them, more monsters, more storytelling, more character development, backstory, but also moving forward with, like, how to rescue these characters.
Like any monster horror movie, like, I wish there's more. Not like a zombie movie where you look out the window, there's like 100 zombies. Just more like, we had about, I'm going to say, like, off the top of my head, I remember 4 monsters. There's probably, like, maybe if you want to consider Sara, she might have been a 5th, like, it's a ghost.
No, she's a monster. She has a story.
So we have Sara, Harold, the toe creature, the red room lady,
Pale lady.
And then, was it the Jingly Man?
The Jangly Man.
So we only had, like, 5 monsters in the whole movie. Finishing up, I did enjoy the movie. I recommend it. Like, if you're a diehard, you want some horror, you want something fun, like, walk in with the idea this is more spooky. It's not like a gore fest.
And you don't need blood to be scary. And I think they hit on that the best. That, like, the uncomfortability. Again, I will say this again. That hay scene. Like, I was so uncomfortable. I still felt like, oh my god, this is painful. Like, granted, like, everybody else, well, Ruth kind of suffered a physical damage, but everybody else was, like, consumed or disappeared in some way. But his had the most physical affect, and it was, like, despite all the lack of blood, it was still incredibly painful. Like, I don't know. I can only imagine what that would feel like. So you don't need the blood, you don't need the gore, to create that unsettling and disturbing feeling in your audience.
That scene was very, like, visually painful to watch, even though there was no blood. I really hope this movie does well. I hope it makes enough money so we can get a proper sequel, just anything in general, just because it was fun. I like movies like this. I want more horror movies with practical effects.
I know we're trying to wrap things up here, but I think the world building is really good about this. As much as the characters kind of like, they definitely need more development. If the directors or producers, whoever is listening, please work on your characters. But the world building opens so many more opportunities to, like, stories to be told. So far that we know, the only other stories before Stella and her friends were the families. But because I said, you know, I have some suspicion that the mom was one of the stories, that begs the question of, like, okay, so if it's the mom, then who else? You know, where is she going? Where is she going? She's obviously going somewhere that led her to another world, or not another world, but another place to explore, like, what the book is leading her to. So, I appreciate that. That is untypical from most horror movies, which are very, like, you know, family-centric or individualized, where it's like, you know, it's their story, it sticks to their story, the monster gets them, and the monster ends with their story, and, you know, the outside world is oblivious to it all. But really with this, it's hinting that there's a much larger story to be offered, which I'm excited about, because I think that opening up opportunities for, no offense to teenagers who are kind of lame.
No, teenagers are lame.
I'm sorry, they just...
No, it's like...
It's just maybe I'm an old person.
No, like... Yeah, it's a funny thing, like... I know as a teenager, I was lame. But I was like, you know, like, I'm cool because I'm a teenager, but...
It's just
it's just like... I'm sorry, like, just as a teenager, you see the world differently. You're like, oh, X, Y, Z. Like, of course, I'm invincible because I'm a teenager, and, like, your brain... You just don't think, right? And that's just nothing personal towards teenagers. It's just like...
It's not. I just want to know more so badly. Like, and that's, I think, again, another thing that the movie does a really great job of is, like, okay, you gave me my first spoonful, and now I want more. Like, give me more. And, I think it's gonna... With the first movie, it suggests that they're gonna do even greater in the second one, because they... You know, they have so much that they can expand upon. I'm excited. I definitely think there's going to be a second one. I mean, there's so many more stories that they can do. There's so many things that they can talk about in the next movie. It definitely suggested, okay, wait, one last thing. Maybe can edit this after. I did not like the ending.
Like the
Her
cheesy...
being like, she taught me that never give up. I was like, she's a fucking murderer, Stella.
Oh, you know what Pennywise taught me? Never to be afraid.
Exactly. I was like, Jesus Christ. That was so weird. Like, again, you know, it's an actual demon monster, but, like, Stella's a human monster. But I'm just like, really? That's what she taught you? Like, really? So,
you know,
I mean, throw that in there whenever you want to. But...
You know what Pyramid Head taught me? To work out. Like, yeah, that was ridiculous. Like, what? It was.
But it also begs the question. Sorry, they're so stereotypical that I actually wonder if it was done on purpose. Like, it's almost funny. It's almost funny how archetypal that they are.
Well, it's funny because where's Guillermo del Toro? Oh, sorry, I butchered his name.
Guillermo.
Yeah.
Del Toro.
Sorry, dude. Like, I love his movies, but I butchered his name. I'm just like, I'm sorry, man. I respect you. I do. Shape of Water. Awesome
Anyways.
Movie. Point is, it's interesting that him as a producer, I don't know for him to be on board, and I wonder what his thoughts were. Point is...
That's a good point.
My ending thoughts were, I think we will get a sequel. I think this movie will make enough money to be profitable, to get another movie after that. I'm wondering, because that other movie, they're going to have to, like... And here's another thing for another time. Maybe we'll get, like, a Jacob's Ladder approach in the next movie because it deals with the Vietnam War.
I don't even know what you're getting. Oh, yeah, I do.
So
creepy.
That is creepy because if Ramon goes to the war and like worlds collide,
that's fricked up, man.
That is
I'm
fricked
excited.
up.
Oh, ooh, juicy.
So with that being
so
said,
good.
that would be good. So I just want to end my thoughts. I know, like, it's like so many, like, it's just sitting here thinking of like crazy ideas, and this is how monsters, like, fun horror stories come to life. With that being said, I'm liking.
I'm Amethyst.
And we'll catch you another night.